much flexing should I do?
Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody. Here we go. Episode number, Michigan Series number 23. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. I just realized all the names are wrong on the video, which, of course, if you're listening to the podcast, you could always listen to the video over at youtube.com/Better on Draft. Go and check it out. But let's go around and see what everybody is drinking, starting with Wendy. Wendy, what do you got over there?
Well, I am double fisting today because I found this Little Saints CBD. It's a plant magic mocktail.
Okay.
Sugar-free, has a little bit of CBD in there, but it is a ginger mule. It's been interesting so far. I'm interested to try some of the other flavors as well. And I also have a Creature Comforts Cocoa Bunny Milk Porter.
Awesome. Robert, what do you got?
Right now, I've got in my big glass here the Condor Valley Fluffsicle from Wax Wings, and in my little short glass here, doing a definitely close to a Dan impersonation, and it's just ginger beer with some Elijah Craig foolproof or barrel proof rather.
Nice.
Well, you named
barrel
it.
proof for all of those bourbon enthusiasts.
Dan, what are you drinking over there?
Going hard, laying off the beer. I've got my vodka soda going today.
All right. And we do have a guest here. I was kind of hoping that Nick was going to... There he is. Nick.
There's Nick.
How are you? What are you drinking?
I am doing wonderful. I am drinking an Exhibit A Cat's Meow. That's from last week. And this is for you, for the rest of my co-hosts here. The end of a social experiment, the 5-year Hop Slam from 2017, and it's spilling all over my...
I feel like that's going to taste like lighter fluid, but I can't wait to see you drink it.
Well, I gotta clean up the mess first. So
you just spilled it everywhere.
We'll get your play-by-play after you clean it up, but we'll bring in our guests all the way from Harmony Brewing in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us what you do with the brewery?
Sure. I'm Barry VanDyke from Harmony Brewing Company. I'm one of the co-owners, co-founders, and a brewer. I do lots of different things at Harmony Brewing Company. So, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's hard to ask business owner what they do because you do everything. But I'm Heather VanDyke. I am Barry's my brother, and then along with our other brother Jackson, we own Harmony Brewing Company. And I would say I focus more on the people aspect, so managing managers, creating relationships within the community, setting up events. Helping with marketing and branding, which is, all about telling your story to people. So I'm more of the people person.
That's a great answer.
Well, you guys mentioned that you're all siblings, so let's kind of talk about that real quick, because family businesses are probably some of the hardest to navigate. And you guys have been together and working and brewing and doing everything, for years upon years now. What makes you guys so strong as a family business?
I mean, it's just pure stubbornness, honestly. I mean, it's a really interesting and complex thing to navigate running a family business. But the one thing you can know for sure is that you've always got each other's backs. You know each other better than anybody else is going to know you, and so we work really well together. We know how to crack each other up. We know how to piss each other off, unfortunately, but and we've got a shared history. And so we gel.
I would add that we have a shared sense of humor, and we know how to play because we were each other's first playmates. And so we know how to be goofy together when you can be goofy, and then sometimes that can relieve some tension and then bring us back to that this is supposed to be fun, damn it. And so
right, exactly. Yeah, you probably couldn't go up to a partner who wasn't a sibling and just be as completely honest and raw about something you're like upset about, or something's just not quite gelling right. And so that, that's definitely a positive. You can just lay it all out pretty much, make sure everything is true and earnest.
Yeah, it's hard when like every family gathering turns into a business meeting, but
Christmas is fun.
Do you guys find it hard to not talk shop when you guys are away from the brewery?
No. Yeah, we always talk shop. Yep.
Yeah, but it's mixed in with other stuff, like it's like when you're married and you have kids and you try not to talk about your kids on your day, it's impossible. You're going to talk about your kids because you love your kids.
Right.
But it doesn't need to dominate,
Yeah. And that's kind of balanced out by us just completely screwing around at work too.
So I forgot to ask, and how rude of me, what are you guys drinking?
Well, I'll go first because then you can talk more about.
Sure.
I'm not drinking our actual beer because I'm taking a booze break, and I was happy to hear that you guys are cool with that and listening to other episodes, and also really psyched to be able to go and have cool NA options. And so right now I'm drinking the oatmeal stout from Brewing, and then I've got the intentional IPA from Wellbeing that I'm going to try next, and I'm for the first time ever legitimately excited to drink my non-alcoholic beer.
Well, welcome to the NA family. Sorry, I was going to mention because I forgot I'm drinking the Hoppy Amber from Brooklyn. I'm still sober. But what about you, Barry? What do you got?
I'm drinking a beer that we've had on tap for 10 years now. It's a beer that I was brewing as a home brewer. It's our flagship IPA. It's Fiddlesticks IPA, which is named after my cat, who's still with us. It is just your classic West Coast IPA, very well balanced with malt, and I like a nice strong bitterness to my IPA. You can see it is not hazy, it is clear, and it's got the 3 C's: Chinook, Cascade, Centennial. It's just a really nice, easy drinking IPA.
All right, I guess it's going to get thrown to me here. First question for me, obviously, with having a brewery, usually one of the first things that we kind of ask is about your history. And obviously you have 2 locations. I believe it's the East Town and the Harmony Hall. I guess take us back to the time of, thinking about doing a brewery, opening a brewery, to opening East Town, to then expanding to Harmony Hall.
Yeah. Well, this all started with my brother and I being home brewers. And we had never brewed on a commercial system before. And, but we had the dream that a lot of home brewers do of opening up a brewery. And we got the opportunity to purchase a old abandoned liquor store in East Town, which is I don't know if you guys are familiar with Grand Rapids. East Town is one of the coolest neighborhoods in Grand Rapids. That's where I live. And it's pretty integral to our identity is this neighborhood of East Town.
It's a little bohemian neighborhood in Grand Rapids.
It's fantastic. So anyway, we bought this building with the dream of starting a brewery, and we didn't have a big budget, and we didn't have a lot of know-how about commercial systems. So we actually built a system for brewing that was an extra large home brewing system, essentially. We built it out of old dairy tanks that we got from Wisconsin. And the guy actually took it over in the Badger, took the dairy tanks over in the Badger, and then loaded his truck up with Michigan blueberries and took those back to Wisconsin.
The Badger is a boat that goes across from Michigan to Wisconsin.
Right, exactly. So anyway, that's how we started. That was in 2012.
And don't forget about the yogurt tank fermenters.
Yeah, and our fermenters are made out of yogurt tanks. So basically, we're in a liquor store. We're brewing in the basement with these large single shell tanks, and that we've converted into brewing equipment ourselves. And then our fermenters are just single shell tanks that we control the temperature by controlling the entire room. And that's how we opened back in 2012. It was extremely bootstrapped, but we were able to brew our home brews and get it out there. And we struck a real awesome chord with the neighborhood. And and we had some success, but like maybe a year and a half after we first opened, we could no longer do what we want to do with this tiny little building and this kind of rudimentary brewing system. And so we opened in 2012, and in late 2013, we were already starting to look for another place that had a more room to brew, and we wanted to get into a system that had more temperature controls, more it's like a more professional system that wouldn't limit us so much on what we wanted to do. And so we got the chance to buy this building on the west side of Grand Rapids, which is an iconic building. A lot of people in Grand Rapids know about it. It's called It was called Little Mexico for, I think, 40 years. And it unfortunately went out of business in 2010, and so it just had been sitting empty and making everybody sad. And we used to go there all the time as a family, and we'd really loved the building. And it's huge comparatively to the one that we have in Easttown. This one on the west side was built as a sausage factory, and it's 13,000 square feet. So we moved fairly quickly over there for our production, and we got a nicer system in there. And since I think we finally opened that one up in 2015. Mm-hmm. And so we've been brewing most of our beer over there, and that's allowed us to do a lot more stuff that get us a lot more technical with our brewing. So
cool. Now, the closest, unfortunately, I've not been, I guess, into that Easttown section. The closest I've been that I've gone to Elk, Brewery, Havent, and Speciation.
Oh, you were right up the street.
So yeah, right on the street. But obviously, but I guess with being in that Easttown section, what is so obviously you live there, so there's obviously a little bit of bias. But what makes Easttown so special especially when you have Grand Rapids, where they call it Beer City? What separates Easttown from everything else?
I think, for us, we all we grew up in Chicago. We came here to go to school, and then we ended up living in Easttown. So it's kind of got that bohemian aspect. Like I said before, there's all little shops. It's got a really well organized business community and community association. So there's always like cool festivals, cool street art. There's always just a great vibe. One of their big festivals is Street Fair, and I can't remember what year the anniversary is, but they showed a picture of the first Street Fair, which was from the 1970s, and it's just hippies as far as the eye can see. Right. And that's what we vibe with, and so it is a good fit for us.
Yeah, and coming from Chicago, Jackson and my brother and I used to come up. We were in high school, and my sister was already living up here, so we would come up here and visit her. And it would just blow our minds. Like, there was poetry, and there was art, and there was just this cool, tight knit, laid back community that, we just really were drawn to.
All right, I got to get out there now. So I read that last November, you guys decided to make the move and go from being an on-site sales brew pub to a microbrewery. What drove you to make that change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we for people who don't know, like, brew pubs and microbreweries are distinct in the state of Michigan. A brew pub is essentially a bar that's licensed as a bar that is allowed to brew its own beer. So you can have a full liquor license. You can have other people's liquor, other people's beer, and you can put your beer right alongside of it. But the downside of that is that you're not allowed to distribute your beer. You could only buy it inside your location. The other license is called a microbrewery. And you can make your own beer, you can make your own wine, you can make your own liquor, but you are not allowed to take anybody else's stuff and put it on tap in your place. And so for 10 years, we kind of always felt like we got into this because we were passionate about brewing and because we really loved beer. But we weren't allowed to take part in some of the festivals. We're not allowed to take part in like the wider beer community. Always kind of felt like we were playing second fiddle. Yeah. And so it was always kind of a dream for us to to move from brew pub to microbrewery, and we finally made it happen last year. And it's cool because we actually now have a full decade of brewing experience and getting a good reputation in town here under our belt. And so now jumping into the distribution game from that point, I feel like we're on a really good footing for that.
Okay. Now, and I was definitely curious about this portion here is that obviously not every brewery looks to go into wines and spirits, which you just mentioned a little earlier, but is obviously you guys are planning on doing this as well, is not only being a brewery, but making wine and spirits. I'm curious, I guess, one, why move into that space? And two, do you feel like the business model is changing where breweries should just step into just, I guess, making the trifecta, doing beer, wine, and spirits?
I mean, I think a lot of that's a great question. I think a lot of it for us is pub driven, like we are very neighborhood centric. And we have a lot of customers who ask for liquor and for wine. And so we want to be able to provide that for them. And so especially on the wine side, it's more utilitarian. We just want to be able to provide them with an option. Beer is still definitely our focus and our passion. And that's what we're going to be hitting the market with primarily is our beer. And for me, like I'm actually in charge of the distilling, and I really love just getting in there and learning the new craft and getting into some more obscure stuff like Amaros, and I'm really into gin. And so for me, that's just a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to just coming up with some cool stuff. But mostly that's for in-house. I don't think that we're going to be really hitting the market with all three of those things.
Okay. I do have a gin question after this, but I did want to ask one other thing before that. Right. And as I'm trying not to lose my thought here, I noticed, obviously, we're talking about beer, wines, spirits. I don't hear anything about seltzers.
Oh, we have seltzer.
You have seltzer. Okay.
Like seltzers and any IPAs are kind of, they hit the same note for me. As a brewer, for both of those things, I was like, no, thank you. I'm not interested. Didn't want to do it. Had to be convinced, then finally did it and was like, all right, yeah, this is pretty good. So we do both of those at this time. Seltzer it's fun because it really tests your ability to control fermentation and make sure, like people talk about like Kolsch beers and other like lager beers as having nowhere to hide. On a seltzer beer, if you're not running like a big industrial system where you've got tons of filtration, you're doing what we're doing, where you're basically doing a straight fermentation. You have to control it so carefully to make sure there's no off flavors that it makes it interesting and it makes it a cool challenge. And so we came along kicking and screaming on the seltzer side, but now I'm totally into it and I like it.
Took me a while to kind of come along myself, so I finally got there as well. But the one last thing I wanted to ask, actually about the gin and your love of gin. I am definitely an occasional gin drinker myself. I do have like my one bottle that just sits downstairs that I take a very long time drinking, which is not made anymore. It was done. It was a special bottle that was done by Detroit City Distillery, and one of our friends, Nick the brewer, called the Lonely Warrior, which is probably one of the best gins I've ever had. I'm curious about making these new gins. Are there specific ingredients that you're wanting to use that are going to make these so unique, or is there any type of ingredient that you want to use going down the line?
I'd I'd like to hear about why you like that gin so much.
Yeah, I was about to ask the same thing. It's like, tell me more about this gin and what you liked about it so much.
I'll have to run down and go grab the bottle. It is like for its floral build behind it, it is so different from just standard gins. And I shout out to Nick the Brewer. I don't know what he did to come up with this, but it is just absolutely amazing. And I wish I could find more bottles of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly why I love gin so much, is because the only thing that actually is required to define it as gin is juniper. That's the only botanical that it needs to have in it. And with juniper, you can go ruddy and earthy. You can go perfumey and floral, or there's just so many different directions you can go with it. Herbaceous. You can color it in so many different ways that so basically with gin, you start off with a neutral grain spirit, and then you steep it with different botanicals, and then you re-distill it a second time. Some of those essential oils from the botanicals will go through the second fermentation. And then you can even, if you get really into it, you can sometimes add more botanicals after the second distillation. And so it's really a fun spirit to get into, just because of how varied you can get and how much you can get into it. And so, yeah, hearing that Detroit, what was it called again?
It's from Detroit City Distillery, called Lonely Warrior, and it used kumquats, osmanthus, and rose hips, and Japanese limes and Vietnamese cinnamon.
Yes,
sounds so romantic.
Wow, yes, it does. It sounds so romantic. Fantastic.
Barry's working on one that is super earthy. It's just delicious.
Yeah, I'm using an Earl Grey tea because it's got bergamot and black tea in it. And shoot, off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember.
Didn't you have some kind of funky
root,
lime?
And there's a Persian dried black lime that is got just like this extremely citrusy, like concentrated lime flavor, but also because it's sun dried, it has like just a depth to it that's just beautiful. And then you can have a gin that tastes like that, or you can have it be like super juniper forward and very dry, or you can have it be very floral with like rose hips or iris or orris root or iris. There's so many. I love it.
I'll have to figure out. I'll have to figure out, because I've got a pretty decent portion of it. I have to figure out how I can bottle it and send you some bottled water. We'll just call it that. I'm gonna pass this over to Dan.
Absolutely. I'm glad you actually brought up the distilling, Rob, because I've been curious about that too. Would you guys mind talking about any challenges you've come up with, or run into, I should say, as far as getting into the distilling, since you've been doing beer for so long?
Well, one big challenge is the paperwork is way more strict on distilling, as far as the reporting on the TTB side, and the state of Michigan too, is just like, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more strict. And so I feel like as a craft brewer, you have a lot of freedom to just get in there and like kind of wing it and make something fun. And right now, the way the laws are set up on the distilling side, you have to be a lot more intentional about your planning. So that's definitely a challenge.
It's relatively new too. It's been like 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah. So we're infants.
Right.
So it is pretty new.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Have you contracted out some of your, because obviously you haven't been able to make your own bourbon. Have you contracted that out to another source to get it, or what have you done as far as going down that road?
Well, we don't have any bourbon. I don't think we're going to have any bourbon because we just don't have the space to age it properly. I just want to do things that we can do right and do well. And I feel like there's a lot of people who do have bourbon. So we're going to be focusing more on things you can make with a neutral grain spirit, like gin, vodka, and maybe different infused liqueurs.
It's too bad you're not going to do bourbon, because you could go down the road at that point of doing your own barrel-aged stout, which people, at least where I'm at, still go crazy about that kind of thing after all these years. One thing I'm curious about, you've gotten into wines, as Rob was talking about. Have you thought about getting into mead? And if not, why haven't you as of yet?
I would love to get into it, for sure. We haven't done it yet. I think we need to find a really good honey partner, because honey's expensive. If I'm just buying it from, I have to find a good partner for that. But I would love to do some mead. I've done mead as a home brewer, and it's like you have to be very patient.
Yeah.
A good mead takes at least a year to fully age.
Yeah, I've actually gotten into it myself. And right now it's still, I think it's about 4 months at this point. I'm like, oh, come on already. You know, I've made beer in the past. It's one of those things you just have to be really, really patient for, you know, in order to get it right, which is kind of the biggest drawback of it. But once you have it going, it is a good place. You're in a good spot once you have it continuously being made.
Right.
Let's talk about your home brewing. What was your favorite batch you've ever done as a home brewer that maybe kind of kicked you down the road of wanting to open your own brewery?
It's probably a beer that we still brew called Star Stuff. It was a Belgian double. And it was the first homebrew that I brewed where I really paid attention to yeast and the different things that yeast can do to a beer. And then it was one of those magical moments where we were in Michigan in the summertime, which is the best time to be in Michigan. And we were on the Manistee River, and I just pulled out all this Star Stuff that I had just brewed. It wasn't called Star Stuff yet. We cracked it open and we were drinking it, and then we were just looking at the Milky Way. And it was like the perfect companion to standing around a campfire talking about God and philosophy, and looking at the stars. And then that's why it became named Star Stuff, named after the Carl Sagan quote, "We're all full of star stuff." But yeah, so that's probably my favorite homebrew memory for sure.
We like to be a little poetic.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
And Barry actually partnered with a prof at Grand Valley over here who gave him a meteorite.
Yeah.
And he put it in a batch one time.
Yeah. That was when we first opened.
Maybe that's illegal. Sorry. Maybe I should have said
that. When we first were open, and he just gave me some stuff. He said it was like pulverized meteorite. I was like, sweet, I want to put this in the fermenter. It does nothing with the flavor at all. It's a symbolic.
It's just the poetics.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I am actually going to pass it over to Nick. You have a couple of questions?
I do have a question or two, but the 5-year hop slam is not doing so well.
I knew it wasn't going to.
I'm sure with the reactions on my face was not a dead enough giveaway. But I want to talk about expanding to the second location. Most craft breweries, they have a plan, they want to open, and they're just content with the location that they have. Was it nerve-wracking or was it terrifying that you were going to go down this path of opening a second location, especially still being in Grand Rapids? Just, however, I mean, I'm not geographically, I don't know how far apart they are, but within the same city, was that a terrifying experience? Because not many breweries take on that venture, especially here in Michigan. What was that whole experience like? And talk us through that.
Yes, it was.
In a nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it is scary to grow that fast. And one thing that we've talked about a lot is we mentioned we grew up in Chicago, and then we all came here to Grand Rapids and started raising our families. And being in a place like Grand Rapids, you have the ability to try stuff and just put one foot in front of the other. Excuse me. This NA beer is making me burp. So that was our mode, just to, try stuff and put one foot in front of the other. And so we were like, we're running out of space. We got to figure out the next step. And so that's what we did. And it was difficult. I mean, it's yeah. Sorry. Do you want to pick it up?
Yeah, no, there's definitely challenges to that. That was just kind of the way the cookie crumbled for us, because we had to start where we could afford to start and make it work. And it was just and that's still where our heart is. That location is still like, that's Harmony. But as far as the system is concerned, we grew out of it both technically and size-wise very quickly. And so, but we look back and say, like, what if instead of moving to the second location that we picked, we just went to a big warehouse out by the airport or something like that, which is a thought that never even crossed our mind at the time, because we're so attracted to neighborhoods, attracted to buildings and the stories behind them, that we went with this one. So it's kind of weird. Like, we're not a chain, but we do have 2 locations in town within 15 minutes of each other. Somehow Applebee's gets away with it.
Well, and the point to what we could afford was in a neighborhood that had some long-standing businesses, but it also was still a neighborhood that was kind of at the beginning of its rebound. And so it's been a long haul in being one of the outliers in that neighborhood. And so yeah, there's been challenges, but it's also we've learned a lot, and there's a lot that's been great about it. But yeah, it definitely, and I think Barry makes a really good point about, like, our experience was with focusing on neighborhoods, focusing on the buildings. We were learning how to be a brewery, and so we came to it from that point of view, not necessarily thinking like, well, we should get more of a warehouse space out by the airport. Right. That didn't occur to us, but
everything we do is organic.
Yeah, from the heart.
Let's talk about the food. If the food program, let's talk about the food program. A lot of people bring, a lot of breweries, they allow people to bring their own food in. Let's talk about the food program. Going through the menu, and I'm a big food guy. The only thing I know is how to order off the menu. Don't know anything about cooking food or anything like that. My wife would say otherwise. Talk a little bit about the food, some of your favorites. For someone who's not familiar with the west side of Michigan, they would want to come to eat. Actually, it looks like it's either of your locations have a food program. Can you talk about that?
Really? Okay. See where siblings were like, are you going to go? Are you going to go?
Get a little signal.
We do wood-fired pizzas that have been crazy successful. That was a decision that was based out of the one foot in front of the other thing. We didn't realize at first that we needed to be able to have food in order to have the license. And then our original spot, we had this little teeny tiny space for a kitchen, and we were like, well, we could put a wood-fired oven in there. And then that's a concept of it in and of itself. And that is the space that is we can carve out for any kind of piece of equipment. And being from Chicago, we have strong opinions about pizza and love pizza. And so we wanted to approach the pizza with the same thoughtfulness that we approach the beer. So we do wood-fired pizzas, and I'm going to brag on us. We won lots of awards for the pizza. We got voted third best in the state of Michigan by MLive. And we have that now at both locations. There have been times when we've done house-made sausages out of Harmony Hall, but right now we're back to wood-fired pizzas. And our menu, we're a brewery where we don't have a crazy extensive menu. We like to keep it simple. And so it's mostly focused on the pizzas, and then some seasonal salads. And our philosophy with the pizza, and Barry can talk more about it too, because he originated a lot of the recipes, is to be a little more simple and sparse with the ingredients. You can actually taste the crust and the way that the ingredients all interplay with each other, because they've been put together thoughtfully. And we like to work with local farmers. That's not such a unique thing anymore, which thankfully, more people do it, but that's the way that we started out back when we opened up. Mm-hmm. And so I still eat it every week, and I'm not sick of it yet.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that says a lot.
We've been open for 10 years, so 10 years.
There you go. All right. Really quickly, personal favorite pizza out of the ones that you have on your menu. What is your go-to or your favorite?
My favorite is the Good Earth pizza, which is a pizza that is still on the menu today. Is one of the two best-selling pizzas that we have. that is based on what was for sale at Meijer when I was like developing recipes that day. So it's like Jarlsberg, cheese, spinach, garlic, shiitake mushrooms, and then balsamic drizzle on the top. And it's just like this delicious, umami rich vegetarian pizza that people have really
super yummy,
super gotten into.
I have two answers. Usually it's our hay goat, which is with goat cheese from a local farmer that we work with. His real name is Rusty Plummer. And then our house-made sausage on there, and it's really delicious. Right now I'm eating vegan, so I'm not eating that pizza. But we have a approach with vegan food, which is not to put a bunch of fake meats on it and try to replicate non-vegan foods and vegan, in a vegan recipe. So our sliding doors pizza is really, really good. And it's more just like focused on how to put vegetables on a pizza in a delicious way. And I've been loving that lately.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to Wendy. Wendy, you can go ahead.
I love that philosophy. That's one of my biggest pet peeves about vegan food is why, if you're trying not to eat meat, do you want it to look like a piece of meat? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Absolutely.
And some of that fake and stuff has got ingredient list that's this long, and
it's not good for you.
It's not particularly healthy. So,
right, doesn't make any sense. I totally get it. I have been to both locations, and I do love your pizza. It's amazing, and your beer. But my question is, so I like to travel, and my goal has been to go to a whole bunch of different breweries in the state. So in an area that is so inundated with breweries, what do you guys think sets your locations apart that people should come and visit you?
Man, well, I think that that's a really hard question because we've got like 40 breweries here in Grand Rapids, and
you guys know that it's a collaborative community. We were explicitly told when we opened up, like, breweries help breweries. And we were like, oh, we love that. I mean, and you do not, I was going to say talk shit. You're not asking us to talk shit. You're saying, like, why come to ours?
Yeah, why come to ours?
Well, I mean, we have really good food. And there are other breweries in town that have really good food too, for sure. But we have delicious pizza. And then I think for us, like we've talked about quite a few times, like we're really about the neighborhoods that we're in. And so we reflect the neighborhood in both of our locations, and working with like local artists and really focus on the aesthetic and the vibe of our place. In either one, we've collaborated a lot with a business called Wusa. The owner's name is Ray. She created this guy, our cool hot buy guy, and her art is throughout the space, murals, and it's got a super cool vibe. And then you might stumble into any number of cool events that are happening in either place. If you show up, like on the west side, right now we've got comedy every Saturday. We have either music, or once a month it's a drag show. There's different groups that are meeting in the space, and so you can get a flavor of the neighborhood by coming into the space. And we think that's one of the fun parts of our job too, is to help to create the cultures and participate in the cultures of the neighborhoods that we're in.
For sure. And also, like, when we first started 2012, that was the same year that Harmony Brewing, that was the same year that Grand Rapids started donning the mantle of Beer City, USA.
Yeah.
And so from the very beginning of that mantle, and from the very beginning of like the explosion of how many like smaller independent breweries were going on in Grand Rapids, like we've been there. And so I feel like we're like a kind of an integral part of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
We've been holding these beers for a decade now. And if you want to really get a feel for what Grand Rapids brewing in 2022 is all about. You want to come to Harmony and see what we're throwing down. Obviously, like there's the grandfather founders, and there's other big breweries that have been around for a long time. But
when we opened, there was maybe four
or five.
Four or five.
And so, I think that you should definitely come check out Harmony if you want to see what's going on in Grand Rapids for sure.
Fantastic. So I do know that there is maybe a different way that you would promote yourself going from a brew pub to the microbrewery. So how has that changed the way that you look at your marketing and the things that you're doing in the community?
Yeah, it's been an interesting question because it's the first time that people are going to be confronting our brand outside of our space, which is such a curated space. And so people we're actually in conversation about that right now. It's like one of the major things that we're trying to figure out. It's like we want people to get the experience of Harmony when they're first coming and seeing our cans or our tap handles outside of our space. And so, I mean, I think that there's value in the fact that we've been around for a decade and that we have a reputation that's behind us and that people can get into it. And I think that it's definitely something that will resonate beyond like our locations as they are right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we are coming to it from such a different perspective because even the questions you guys were asking at first about like going into liquor and wine, and we're coming at it from the point of view of owning tap rooms for 10 years. So we're thinking about like how to put things in front of our customers in those spaces and not necessarily how to put things in front of our customers in the convenience store, in the grocery store, in the restaurants and bars. That's a whole new, that's a whole new area for us. And so, but we've always come at it with a unique perspective because we're self-taught, because none of us worked in breweries before. And so it feels like we're always coming to the next challenge with our perspective, which is not necessarily the industry norm. So we'll have to see.
I'm also curious, mentioning being self-taught, did you guys have any mentors in the area that were able to help you out and kind of guide you when you had questions?
We were totally blown away when we first started going around and talking to people about the fact that we wanted to open up a brewery. That's just the culture of brewing in general. I don't know if it's Michigan specific or if it's everywhere. But we went and we talked to Barry Johnson, who owned Saugatuck Brewing Company at the time, and said that we wanted to open up what would be perceived in any other industry as like a competing business. And what he said was, what can I do to help you? Like, let me give you an entire tour of this brewery. You have to fill out your TTB and MLCC paperwork. Let me open up my filing cabinet and actually show you my original documents that I did that you can copy and help get you on your way. So it was him and the guys at the Hideout Brewery, which is unfortunately no longer around. And Hopcat, when Hopcat was downtown, and it was brewing all its beer. Jeff Williams, who now brews for the Mitten Brewing Company, and Jake, who I think he's out of the industry at this point. Those guys let us just come in and brew on their commercial system, which is the first time we ever brewed on a commercial system. And they showed us like point A to point B. It was amazing just to see like the amount of outreach that those guys were willing to do for us. So for sure, there was definitely people that we could always reach out to and ask questions.
That's one of my favorite things to hear about this industry, especially here in Michigan. Ken?
All right. It's all the way back to me, guys. I don't know if you know, but I'm still on this show. I appreciate you all listening. Obviously, you guys are located in Grand Rapids, both sites, which kind of started the conversation. The community. We started the Michigan Brewery Map app so that we could find every brewery in the entire state, so that people can make their own beer fest, so they don't miss out on local breweries. Because I can't tell you how many times, especially in my travels, where I'm like, "Damn, there is a brewery right around the corner." And it's just like, we wanted to make sure that everyone gets a chance. So go download it at mybeermap.com. Heather, this is for you. You were mentioning that you're taking a break from alcohol. I understand being in the industry, it's hard, just because you're surrounded by alcohol every single day. So give me some highlights. What are some of the things that you have learned, liked, seen in the NA world? Has it been all beer? Have you tasted any spirits? Give me your journey through NA right now.
I'm afraid I have such a boring answer to this question that I should buy shares in LaCroix. I just drink so much seltzer water right now. And I think it's weird. Like, still, I had to admit something so boring to my staff that, like, it doesn't occur to me to leave the house once I'm home, because we're still in that pandemic mode of like not going out. And so I haven't been able to explore too much stuff at other restaurants and stuff. But I mean, I do feel like it's not uncommon at all to be taking a break from booze. And so it is really nice to go into restaurants and there's more than just soda available to you. There's actually complex mocktails and things like that. I mean, one thing I was saying to Barry that's hard is that there's such lovely complexity in alcoholic drinks that it's hard to get in NA. And I feel like the ones that I've had, the drinks that I've had that even touch that complexity have been like some nice crafted non-alcoholic cocktails. There's a place here called Cafe Mamo that's a new restaurant in Grand Rapids, and they're doing a really cool thing where it's like a husband and wife team, and it's this teeny little dining room, and they're kind of running it together, and they have a nice rotating menu, and they've got some really thoughtful NA cocktails that have good complexity. But other than that, I'm afraid I'm a boring LaCroix girl right now.
Nothing wrong with liking what you like. For me, I actually got into, now that they make it not necessarily all tea, but Hoplark makes hopped seltzers with a litany of different hops, from Mosaic to I'm trying to think. I have like 3 boxes right behind me. You can kind of see in the back corner. Those are all Hoplark seltzers. But let's touch on that real quick before we kind of close out the show and we all ask our final question. But as everyone knows, we've been in a pandemic for going on 2 years now. What was your guys' pivot at the beginning, and how are you guys doing now?
I think in the beginning we were lucky in some ways because we do pizza. And so it wasn't a stretch for us to move into a more delivery and to go. And we had just the year before invested in a second kitchen and equipment to do crawlers and stuff to do beer to go, because we had the kind of license that would allow that. So we were able to move to that. And that was helpful. And then we had just a ton of, like everybody did, like, we're open, we're closed, our hours are limited. Now we're trying to stretch them, and now we have to close again. And when we reopened the hall, we had Easttown open more fully, and then we had the hall closed, and then we were trying to relaunch the hall, and literally within an hour of being opened, we found out a staff who had worked at both locations had COVID, so we had to shut the whole thing down. I forgot about that. Oh, jeez. And then I got it like a couple of days later. So yeah, but the whole time through, and sometimes just by like fake it till you make it, we were like, we're gonna make it, and we are.
Yeah.
And now it's not faking it. We really are going to make it.
Yeah. No, and it's like, if I'm going to knock on wood, but it feels like it's starting to loosen up. Like, it feels like it's just starting to get back to normal again. Maybe it's just because spring is coming. But
I think we all as a community had a huge sense of bravado in the fall of last year, like that like August, September. I think we were all like, oh, we're triple vax, we're good to go. Let's just get out. We're seeing football stadiums full. We're seeing baseballs, like all this stuff. So we're, the ones that stayed in, we're like, all right, we can get out. But I think, I agree. We're still I'm excited. I'm going to be heading over to Denver here in a week. So I'm going to be taking my first plane ride in a couple of years. So I'm excited, nervous, scared, happy, all that fun stuff to get out of the house. But as we end the show every single week, we're all going to ask kind of like a final fun question to make it loose and then give you the opportunity to tell us where you guys are located and all that. So we are going to start with Rob. Rob, what's your final question?
All right. Real quick, another NA option, Heather, that I have found has been pretty good is stuff from Untitled Art. Their NA beers have been amazing. But I guess with my question, I was kind of thinking of doing a take on beer pairings by doing some beer brand pairings. So I'm curious, what's your beer brand and how, I guess, let me back up. What band or musical artist do you think would pair well with your beer?
Ooh, wow. That's a huge one.
Can we get back to you with an essay? Is this
a good question?
Important question to us.
Bill Weathers' Lovely Day.
Oh, yeah. We have a lovely day. We have a beer called, and it's named after that Bill Weathers song. Yeah.
Yep. That's
it. Good answer.
There you go.
Good one. I like that. All right. I'm clear.
All right. I got one for you. Not quite as deep, so I kind of tough following that up. But what's one beer you haven't had a chance to make yet, especially going into distribution, that you'd love to make and get out there for everyone?
I feel like we need to come up with something that's just a real light ABV Pilsner that has some reason for somebody to drink it, because I think a lot of people are skewing more towards the easy drinking beers, and we don't want to try to, like, I always find it weird when craft brewers are trying to compete with what the macro guys are putting out as far as just like a crushable lawnmower beer. But like, there's got to be, that's the nut that we have to crack. Like, what can we do as a craft brewer to come up with something that's like nice, light, low-cal ABV? And still some of that,
complex and delicious,
right? And some of that is also like tied into the economics of it too. Like, you can't make something that is $12 a six pack at that point. So yeah, that's a tricky one, but I feel like that's the nut that we need to crack going forward.
Awesome.
Creating a beer like that is always hard because it takes up tank time, as well as the cost comparison to other beers is just hard to make, because a lot of people when you think about a lager, not only are you competing against the big boys, but you're competing against the local big boys. You're competing against I think Bell's just released a lager. You got Old Nation's Fritz. You've got Founders Solid Gold,
right.
Shorts Local Light. Like, you've got all of these who are able to pump out so many cans, right. Whereas you guys are trying to not only compete local and big. So I commend you. I think, a Pilsner is obviously, Pilsner, lager. Those are some of the hardest styles to make because there's nothing to hide behind. So I am excited for you to, because that's really putting yourself out there.
Yeah,
that's where the guys come in. That's where the other brewers are going to be coming in. Like, all right, let's see what Gary's got over there. But Nick, what's your final question?
My final question is, what beer is in your fridge, NA or normal, that you are drinking this weekend that isn't Harmony Brewing?
Lord.
I mean, normal. I don't know why. I don't know why this question always seems to stump people.
Because like my fridge is full of beer, and it's all Harmony beer. Like if I'm gonna drink beer, it's gonna be Harmony beer because it's like a damaged can or a low fill or something like that. Like, of course, I'm gonna have Harmony beer. Like, and so for me, the only thing that's not Harmony that's at my house right now is some nice red wine. I've got a nice Spanish Rioja, and I've got a, I've got an Italian. Oh shoot, I'm dropping the grape, but like I love a nice red wine, so I'm supplementing my beer with good red wine, and I do like red wine from Europe, but yeah. Beer is going to be Harmony beer in my fridge.
Well, I have LaCroix. I've got the porter from Bell's for my husband. He likes a dark beer, so I'll be drinking that.
As long as it's not this Bell's Hop Slam from 5 years ago.
No. I did have a Belgian beer in my fridge yesterday. It was something from the shoot, like it was called. It was like a Scottish ale from a Belgian brewery. And so I'll buy a Belgian beer here and there just to.
Was that good?
It was delicious.
All right, there you go.
Wendy, what's your final question?
So I am visiting Grand Rapids next weekend for the very first time, and I am coming to your brewery. What beer do you suggest I try?
Oh yeah. So you're coming this weekend?
Sure.
Yeah,
okay. I would drink. The first thing I would suggest that you drink is our drink is our Black Squirrel. It's a
first because that's going to blow out our palate.
Well, how many breweries have you gone to before you came to our brewery?
I can't guarantee anything on that. I can't speak to that.
One of the most unique beers we brew is called Black Squirrel. It was my brother's. Not only was it the first beer we brewed at Harmony, but it was also like his first homebrew recipe ever. It's a porter, and it's brewed with the same. It's brewed with a malt that's actually roasted over a peat fire, and it comes from Scotland. So it's got this delightful peaty, smoky flavor to it, and it's very unique. And we've been brewing it for 10 years, and it's had a little bit of a resurgence lately. People have been drinking the crap out of it. It's delicious. It's super complex. It's only about 6% alcohol, so it's not a super heavy porter. But yeah, it's just like very flavorful, very unique, very Harmony. I would say try that if you want to have something super, super unique.
Fantastic.
All right. And my final question, who is the lightweight of the siblings, and who can outdrink the rest of the siblings?
Oh man, we've got the same genetics, and so the problem is that we can all drink like crazy.
That's why I'm taking a break.
That's why I'm taking a break.
I will say
we've got good, strong Dutch genes. We were able to drink a lot of beer.
When we first opened up, I went to a legislative day, and it was one of the first time meeting a whole bunch of other brewers for me. And it was in between one of the sessions, and we went to a beer, and I was trying to keep pace with like these huge dudes, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm going to destroy myself. So I learned that lesson on the first day.
Yeah. We're going to have to, for sake of sibling fairness, say tie.
That is going to do it. The Michigan Series number 23 Better on Draft. Thank you so much for joining us. Harmony Brewing, where can they find you in Grand Rapids, and where can they find you online?
We got 2 locations, one in Easttown, 1551 Lake Drive, and then our west side location is 401 Stocking. Our website is www.harmonybeer.com.
Awesome. Social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, OnlyFans?
We have one for each. Harmony, right? We have Harmony Brewing Company and Harmony Hall on Facebook and Instagram. And no OnlyFans.
I mean, you could be the first OnlyFans to teach people how to brew. You know, it's not just for that kind of industry on OnlyFans. That's going to do it. Michigan Series number 23. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft. Have a good night.
Peace.